Jeremy Stegall is a coach, author, and speaker with a passion for guiding individuals towards transformative shifts. Jeremy empowers clients to unlock their full potential, and his latest book, After the Divorce, From Looking Back to Leaning In, has been captivating readers since its launch in late 2022. Jeremy, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Brad. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure indeed. For those who haven't encountered your work, perhaps you could share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes. So my name is Jeremy Stegall. I'm originally from the Midwest, USA, Joliet, Illinois. I am a coach, author, and speaker with Where the Change Happens. My journey, it could have various beginning points, but through the introspective process that I've been going on and going backwards even further into childhood experience of what was I making meaning out of experiences that I was present to. But what led to this entire process was getting married, getting a house on the hill with a fence with a dog, and the American dream. I felt like I had gotten to that point. But when I was there, I'm like, I don't think that my ex and I have really talked about values and what was important to us, relationship, vision of what we wanted to create together. It was just, you do this, I do this, and then butting heads around finance and responsibilities and whatnot. I just felt like I wasn't living a life that reflected who I wanted to be. And on that regard, it was like, well, really, what do I want to do and who do I want to be? And just all this uncertainty, just compounding, got to a point where I felt like I had to make a hard decision because in a year of being married, I was miserable. And I felt like if this is what marriage is, then maybe this isn't what is meant for me. So making that hard decision and removing myself from the marriage, I had begun a process, barely even, just, get in another relationship, date somebody else. It was her, it wasn't me. But then I started to notice repeating patterns in my own behavior. And the person I was dating at the time was listening to podcasts and was always having these fun facts about what they were learning about. And like, where are you getting all this information? What is this stuff? You're always talking about something. It's like a podcast. You've not heard of that? I'm like, no. And then once I started to really listen to podcasts, I started to find out and recognize that there was a community of people who felt similar to me, who had experiences and questions and even results in a process that where they were implementing that was impacting their lives. And I wanted to be part of that. So since I had been promoted at work, I was now managing a retail store, managing my divorce, but in a new relationship. It's like, I can figure this out, but people weren't really listening to me in the workplace. Hey, I need you to do this. I need you to go over there and sell this or make this happen. And people were working on their own accord and whatever. Yeah, I'll tell you what to do with your opportunities. It's like, okay, people aren't listening to me. What's going on here? What am I bringing into this space? Because my relationships aren't quite working the way that I want to out of the workplace. And in the workplace, I'm struggling. So I started my own process of listening and really diving into podcasts and reading books and starting to implement what it was I was working on in the workplace. And I started to notice results about my staff starting to improve, as well as myself starting to settle in and become comfortable with who am I and where am I at.
This episode is brought to you by Start With Values. If you'd like to reduce stress and increase fulfillment in your work and life, then check out startwithvalues.com. There, you'll be able to download the Values app, which helps you to discover your core values and bring them to life through micro habits. There is a values course so that you can learn about the science and practice of core values, and you'll be able to pre-register for my forthcoming book called Start With Values. I hope that these tools will enable you to achieve more fulfillment and make more meaningful decisions on your journey of life. Now back to the episode.
I started to come up with processes around stress management and meditation, which was one of the first things I had begun to do when I was stressed in the workplace. And once I started to recognize that my staff was coming along and their training and sales ability was starting to actually progress and improve, we were increasing our sales profitability. We were selling higher margin products. Customers were happier, but my relationship began repeating patterns of finance and what do you want? And you should be doing this. And I've already been divorced. I'm not back and forth. And I was like, okay, I'm the repeating pattern here. If I remove everything, it's definitely me. What can I do then? Because around this time as well, my mother had come down with cancer in 2016 and was dealing with her cancer battle. And so I'm processing the workplace and relationships and my mother being sick and just having these heart-to-heart conversations with her. When I had that opportunity, I asked her, like, Mom, do you have anything that you wish you could have done in your life? Like, we are getting to that line. And she's like, I've done everything I wanted. Like, I'm fulfilled. I've gone everywhere. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. I'm like, wow, to be happy with everything, to be satisfied and content. I want that. But I didn't feel that inside. I felt like I'm trying. I'm all the stuff. I'm spinning my wheels and I'm getting nowhere. But my store was doing well. So I applied for an opportunity to stretch my comfort zone and move to Florida and get a promotion and start a scratch sales territory and see what is it that I'm made out of. If things are starting to improve slightly in the workplace and I'm starting to develop confidence, what am I made of if I remove myself from this environment and put myself somewhere that's more ideal? Well, I didn't really research Florida and the mindset mentality of what's down there, but given today's culture, we've heard quite a bit about what's going on down there and some things that happen. And it's a beautiful place, wonderful people, but I felt like I hadn't done research around what are people looking or how do people treat each other there? You know, the weather, yes, it's warm, but it's hot in the summer. And what does humidity in this heat really mean to me? And all these things I hadn't really paid attention to. I'm like, okay, now's the time. I've committed to 2 years to being here. You have to do something about this. Don't run from this, Jeremy. It's hot. Figure it out. You're struggling in the workplace to start new relationships. We're going to figure this out. Where do I want to meet people and start making friends? I'm going to figure this out. People might treat each other a kind of way, but there is a place where I can connect with people. So let's find that place. And this process led me to journal and to start my blog, Where the Change Happens, to write about what it was that I was implementing in that journey and the process of what was I trying and what were the results that I was producing that maybe someone else could try if they were on a journey of figuring out purpose and meaning in their life and what are my values and this entire system, a strategy of support for me. And as I began leading into that, I started to really notice that people were resonating with me in a different frequency, and my relationships were solidifying in the workplace. And I was developing with customers, and my sales numbers were going up, and all of a sudden my partnerships are expanding. I started to lean into what was unique to my experience in Florida, and I focused on doing that and not on what I couldn't control. Focus on what I can control and what's unique to this opportunity. And research, where do you want to be? So I leaned into having Florida Panthers season tickets. I love hockey. It's part of my identity. And I took into consideration the weather, the climate, taxes, all that stuff. And the Pacific Northwest was on my radar, but they didn't have an NHL hockey team. But thankfully, they had announced they were getting an expansion team around 2018. And a few months later, I'm like, I'm moving to Seattle. It's got the weather, the climate. It's going to have hockey. It's got the people, the community, all the things I had researched. And so when I moved to Seattle, I'm like, I'm publishing all of my blogs, turning them into a book. I'm putting this out there. I'm going next level. How can I support people and meet them where they are? And so I decided to lean into being a writer and to take that next step of entering writing competitions and getting feedback on what can I improve so that I can better connect with others, which led me to my second book after the divorce, From Looking Back to Leaning In, which is a fiction story of what is it like to be boots on the ground on this journey, to really feel that experience and to have that support with the coach as you were figuring out this process, because along that way, I had to ask for support. It was not just me. It may have been podcasts and books to start, but then it became connecting at live events, going to meetups, stretching my comfort zone, and taking action consistently. And now, 5 years into being in Seattle, this is my home, my community. I love it. Everything about everything here. The people, I'm connected to my community. I'm pouring into clients, my coworkers, my neighbors. I'm just showing up in a way that's so fulfilling that I know I am living my purpose. And I know I'm showing up demonstrating my values with consistency. And that when you engage with me and you see me, you know there's something there. And that something was the journey that was where my change happened.
What a journey. You mentioned something that I really like how you framed it. I am the repeating pattern. And it's often not until a crisis that people start to realize or spend some time just reflecting on the common denominator in all of their challenges. And oftentimes, I know in my case, it was me. I was the problem. It wasn't the world. And I was often pretending that it was all of these external variables that contributed to my distress and everything else. But a little bit of introspection is required. Do you think it does take a crisis for people to end up in that position where they go, I'm actually the problem? Or can we find our way there without a crisis?
I think that we can find our way there, but a crisis does not allow you to take your attention away and be distracted. It is immediate, it is urgent, and it is in front of you. You have to do something now. Whereas most case, we have the freedom of choice. It's just shying away from the choice due to fear. But when you're in a crisis, fight or flight is not asking questions. Cortisol is going and you are humming along. Or if it's, I got to move, or I got something ASAP, like you've got a bill that's got to happen, you have to have a surgery, you will start to find ways and put things out there that you might not even think of. That urgency can create momentum. Yeah, I mean, they're both good. Yeah. There's no good or bad about it. I think there's just different ways about it. And one is by choice and the other
yeah, exactly. I like that idea of us being patterns. And you can always rewrite that and rebuild it so that you're a more productive or positive, a force for good in the world by challenging some of those stories that we tell ourselves and those behaviors that repeat. You've got a strong focus on coaching. Mm-hmm. So perhaps you could tell us how coaching helped you on your journey and what are the benefits for others? Because a lot of people hear about coaches and mentors, but never really take that step to find themselves one. So how did coaching help you and what are some of the benefits?
Wow. Coaching has been a life changer for me. I started playing ice hockey at the age of 13, whereas most people start about age 5 that I'm aware of. But I had the work ethic. I just didn't have the skill because I started late. But I went to scout camps growing up. I was at 15, 16, getting cut from teams, not being a good player, until I got to a place when I was 17, about to graduate high school, where one man said to me, at the beginning of this weekend, you were not the best player on the ice. But by the end of the weekend, you were the most improved person out there. And if you are willing to come up to Banff, I think that we can help you get to where you want to get to. We will get you as far as you can. This man believed in me, and it changed my life because then I became aware, whole 9/11 happened, moving out of the US, whole life experience for myself, moving to another country on my own. Wow, okay. And then to get to a place in Banff, Alberta, where someone believes in me, gives me an opportunity, and introduces me into something like peak mental performance coaching. I started becoming aware of visualization and this process that I could manifest. And it stuck with me. I mean, I was already fascinated with human nature to begin with, but to come from this angle and perspective, it was this whole new world for me. So my journey of, playing hockey through college eventually, I've always had coaches around, people who believe in me, people who are pushing me to stretch to get to that next degree of improvement, that 1%. And, graduating high school, I had my journey of, high school. Graduating college is like, well, what do you want to do? Get a job, get married, all that yada, yada. Well, I go on my journey, move to Florida. I go to a personal development event and I sign up for a package of programs that I can attend that really resonate with what it is I'm trying to address around finance, my physical, who I am, and my essence, those sorts of things. But part of the package was a coach that you got 2 coaching sessions a month and 2 groups coaching sessions a month. And really working one-to-one with my first coach. Actually, my goodness, he's my second one. Coach Moore is the one who inspired me to move to Iowa, or from Iowa to Florida in the first place. Like before I even left Iowa. Coaches have been a part of my life. Let's just put it this way. My God. I mean, I met Coach Moore at the right time because as I'm having all these repeating patterns and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And he starts introducing questions that inspired me. Like, maybe I should move to Florida. He's like, okay, well, all right. Well, then we start questions and process down there and gives me the idea of starting the blog and sharing the content. But then when I go to the personal development event, I have another coach that comes with the package and they help me actually launch my blog and start becoming a writer and start to come up with headlines and topics to write about and really improve and deepen that process. And then, fast forward years later, moving to Seattle, working on my second book, I hired another writing coach, someone who helped me write dialogue that I'd never done before. I had never written a fiction story, and I knew that I needed support with keeping up my urgency, but also doing this the best that this writing can be. And my writing coach introduced me to the coaching program that led to me becoming a coach because I wanted to write an authentic experience of a coaching process that could help people, even if the story was fiction, you could still apply what you were reading. So coaching led to coaching that led to coaching, that it was like building on top of a foundation on top of a foundation. And now I have a network of people that I can connect with that have been part of my process of being supported, identifying areas that I can lean into, but also I'm not going into these areas alone, and being supported of coming up with processes or processing what was my experience or what am I making it mean or what else could we try. I mean, coaching was literally rocket fuel for me in every aspect. Because I mean, even still, I was in the coaching program. I had a coach helping me with coaching and a coach with writing. It's like I had support immensely. And even still now, if I feel off or if I need support in my network, I just reach out to a coworker or someone in my cohort, someone I have a relationship, just have a conversation, because they can reflect what it is that I'm not seeing. They can help me from another perspective. And so the benefits of coaching, really, it's perspective that you might not have. It's to see the world from a different context that you might not be present to. It's to partner with someone who believes in you to a degree beyond that you believe in yourself. They see possibility where you don't see it. Because I know for myself, every time that I've had that support, it's been life-changing. It's been incredible. And it's led me to this moment now, feeling like I'm tapped into my purpose by showing up and saying, hey, I don't know, but I feel like I'm missing something, or I want to create something, or this is not where I want to stay. This isn't what I want to be acceptable. I want to shift where I am to a new state. Can you help me? Or do you know anybody who specializes in these areas? Because just having a conversation can trigger an idea that can be that catalyst. I actually never hired my first coach, and it was years later, and I realized I never signed a contract or paid him anything, but the impact of his life was profound.
Mm. How would you suggest someone finds a coach for themselves?
Well, in the age of the internet, it's a lot easier to find coaches. And with podcasts that are out there, you could go online, look up podcasts around coaching. You can look up coaches. Where can I find a coach? I was Googling the International Coaching Federation, trying to figure out who are they, the governing body of coaches, because there is actually a governing body to uniformly come up with a structure of coaching, of defining what is the coaching process. Whereas some people just might willy-nilly show up and say, hey, I'm a coach, I'll talk to you. Some people can do that, but that isn't necessarily what coaching is. So for me, it was researching online and asking people, going to live events. I would ask people, what's something that I might not know about for writing that you might know of if you've written a book? Or, hey, you're a coach. Let me ask you a question about coaching. Or, where could I meet a coach? If someone's in your network or in your proximity, asking can do you a lot of good.
Yeah, absolutely. And how has it felt becoming a coach yourself? I mean, you've written books that have certainly helped people on their journeys. Is that a natural evolution of, you've had that support and mentorship over the years, you naturally want to give back?
Yes. For me, it's a natural, just part of my being. I remember journaling as a kid and writing and processing all this stuff. And that's been part of my process as coach, talking to people about that relationship to self and that conversation, and being a person who could lend an ear in conversation and be that shoulder of support, that person you could lean on and just periodically have advice. I was that person. I just didn't recognize that it could be applied to coaching. I went to Iowa State University and I majored in psychology and minored in sociology. I loved people, but all I thought I could do with that was become a therapist and listen to people complain all day. I didn't realize that there were other ways that we could show up in this world of listening to people's experience, their past, or their aspirations, and be able to come up with a path forward while addressing some of what happened in the past, but not focusing on that. But my curiosity around human nature leads me in so many different directions that there's a lot of different layers around trauma and motivation and human nature that most coaches might not be present to. And I think this is just kind of how I've niched into my area.
How can people create sustainable change, meaningful change in their lives?
for me, it was coming up with a structure so that I could have accountability. Not everyone can create consistency on their own because procrastination feels good. Being comfortable, delicious. But if you want to create change, your body is saying, no, I'm happy where I'm at. This is where I'm good. So for me, it was starting to develop the habit by starting small, one thing at a time, one step forward. You don't have to do everything. For me, it was applying the quote, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10. So I thought, what if I give myself 10 years to lean into where the change happens? What can I create? And my process, what I call my net action plan for productivity, which stands for no extra time. It's if I have free time, what could I be doing that's so fulfilling that I just want to be a part of it? And then lean my free time into these areas. So whether it was my well-being around reading and meditation, exercise, declaring what it is that I wanted to do, like with writing, setting small benchmarks, and then just checking on my calendar every day that I meditated or that I actually did some writing for a blog or that I'm recording music right now. Whatever it is, I have a calendar directly in front of me. Every day when I've said my affirmations, I can see my consistency. Every day that I've taken action, I can see my consistency. If I want to exercise, I know that 8 times a month, it might not sound like a lot. Twice a week, it's enough for me. And I can see that if I miss a week, that's okay. I see all the days. There's 30 days in the month. I only need to work out 8 times. Just make it smaller, manageable, and bite-sized. I went to an event where they were talking about this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And they were just talking about starting so small that it seems like it's not going to make any impact. So small that it seems insignificant. Essentially stacking dominoes so that you can flick that first one over and they start this incredible momentum. But for me, that process, that net action plan of consistency, for me, it was that accountability because part of my process is also journaling. So every day I'm journaling. And if I didn't do something or if I feel some kind of way, I am still engaging with myself around why did I not or what were my results and what do I want to do moving forward. And I'm 7 years into this. I have a process where every week I review what my goals were, what happened, book quotes and that sort, any breakthroughs. And pulling all this stuff together, I can see the dots on the line where I felt like I was off course, where I was going one way, but I felt like I was off. But nope, it is a straight line right to where I needed to be, right to right now. So if you can find a process that helps you start developing that process of consistency, that is the game. And coaches often are that great structure to support you.
And a lot of people struggle with purpose, and I get it. I mean, sometimes our purpose can seem a little bit grand and we say, I'm going to change the world or whatever it is, but it doesn't have to be grandiose, right? But maybe you could talk a little bit about discovering your purpose or at least moving a little closer to it than you are today.
Yeah, it was following my energy, following my gut feeling, following what it was that I wanted to do that people kept telling me, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing something else. Leaning into what I was naturally motivated to want to do. As I started to do that, I'm like, well, I mean, again, reading books and whatnot, it's understanding a little bit of human nature and how this all ties in together and then figuring out, well, how do I want to be about this? Like, why do I care? Why do I not care? What happened that this is repeating a pattern around dating, around finance, and then noticing these patterns and then saying, that's not how I want to show up. I want to be a different way. And for me, going to these different events, they would give you declarations and stuff. Sometimes people stand up and they're like, I am the richest man in the world and nothing is wrong. And I felt like I was lying out loud every time I said the stuff. But I'm like, there is value in actually reciting words out loud. It's a part of the process of integrating it into your memory, especially saying it. You're going to remember it. You're going to feel that energy. You're going to know, like, I believe this. So I started looking at, well, why do declarations not work? And how can affirmations be supportive? And then I started to identify every area around finance, communication, relationship, the workplace. This is who I'm going to be. And every day for almost 6 years now, I recite my affirmations every morning of who I want to be, because that's attached to my purpose. It's attached to who I want to be in this world, how I want to show up, and how I want to serve my community, and how I want to be in relationship. It reflects all of that stuff. But it was a process of recognizing where I felt like I was lying to myself and being curious around why. Who's getting the results out of these decisions? It's a great question. I just got out of this book, The Courage to Be Disliked, that I just read. And it's like, wait a second. All this introjection, all the stuff being projected on me, it's other people's agenda. It's other people's purpose. But I feel like I'm lying to myself. Well, what do you want to say? And where's a safe space to say that? My journal, it's a great place, and I've got many of them. And voice notes of just speaking my heart. That's part of my writing process and part of just get it out there. And because of the process of writing the last book after the divorce, I got back in touch with something I used to do when I was a kid, and that was record music on my own. I taught myself how to play guitar, and I played saxophone in high school. So I started recording music that reflected, where am I at right now? What is my experience at 40 years old, 41 now? And now I tapped into this whole new way to express who I am and what I aspire to, what I want to share and connect in the world. And it just reflects this purpose of sharing my joy, sharing my connection, sharing my love with others, and being open to receiving that. I've heard from various other places to be open to connection and share these things. But it wasn't until I was doing what meant something for me that supported my process that really started to connect me with other people. Because now I can talk, now we can connect around your experience and where you've been and where I've been. And now we're together and we aren't alone on this journey of life, trying to create something meaningful for us, for each other. So yeah, purpose, there's a lot there, but your heart knows.
Beautifully said. I really like that idea of backing it up with daily affirmations, because you do need to reiterate what is important to you. You've spoken also about values a few times, especially in terms of relationships. My next book, which is coming out later this year, is all about starting with values. And once you know what's important to you, maybe your purpose kind of emerges as a result, because you're working day to day, your actions align with what's important to you, your values. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about your book and the process of reinventing yourself post-divorce. Many of our listeners will be in a situation like that. What have you learned, and what are some tools for people?
It really started with the areas that I was recognizing my patterns around that were causing conflict and argument. I mean, I didn't start journaling after my divorce. It wasn't really until after the breakup, before I moved to Florida, that I really started to lean into divorce and processing my experience and starting to actually put down on paper what was going on. And to talk to people about how I felt deficient or less than or unworthy of relationships. People were like, are you serious? What? Really? But talking to people about it, they were seeing, again, something that I wasn't seeing. I felt like I wasn't there. I didn't have what I needed, that I needed something else. I was missing something. And talking to people and writing about this helped me really tighten up my process of writing, because it wasn't just me sitting there writing purely opinion. It was writing conversations that I was having. It was talking about how I got to this point. And I mean, on this journey of being open about being divorced, especially when I was in Florida, I met all these divorced people who were so fulfilled with their lives and their decisions, who hadn't had kids, who didn't want to get married or whatever, at all ages, especially older people, retired. It's like, you could live this way? Really? You can be happy with that decision? Like, you don't have to, the X, Y, or Z. And seeing people thriving in this environment, they were healthy, they were exercising, they were happy with their friendships and relationships. I'm like, I want that. I can do that. Okay. And just connecting with these people and talking to them about divorce. Not that it's a bad thing. It's something that happened. It is what it is. I mean, we make meaning out of our experiences, and divorce does not have to be a bad thing. My ex-wife and her family are good people. I absolutely want to make sure I put this into the world, into the universe, and say that, because I talk a lot about my experience, and it is about me and connecting with other people, dealing with my stuff in this entire process. It's helped me just be okay with this, with being imperfect. With hockey players don't get divorced. Well, people get divorced, and I'm divorced, and I play hockey, so you might want to check that one, Jeremy, because you might be lying to yourself there. And it was just getting real about my imperfections, about what I contributed to the conversation, to the relationships, to continuing on. And it's just recognizing that I'm not perfect, and that there are experiences I had as a child that are impacting how I see my experience and how I process things. But that has led me into reading about childhood trauma and how that impacts our decision making. It's led me into more Eckhart Tolle and Gabor Mate and all these other areas that's like, holy crap, there's a whole other door that I can walk through and really do the next level of work and really deepen this relationship. But if I hadn't walked through that first one of, hey, I'm struggling with conversations and relationship and finance, what's the first thing I can do? And just start there and talk to people. Get connection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a story of hope, really, because so many people are stuck in a relationship that really isn't serving anymore, but they're afraid of what happens next. So what you're saying is, in your experience, you see lots of positivity that can happen after a divorce. And
Yes.
people, of course, they can choose. They might want to get married
Absolutely.
again or not.
How am I going to make it by myself? My partner cooks all the meals. My partner pays the bills. The unknown what if. Like, again, reading the book, The Courage to be Disliked, it's talking about like not being present with where you're at. Like, you can't argue with what is. So, if you feel like something is missing or wrong in the relationship, can you have the conversation with your partner? Are you willing to have a difficult conversation with your partner, an honest and vulnerable conversation about where you're at and what's really going on? People are, it's not easy. I mean, people want to be, you don't want to ruffle feathers. I don't want to upset you. I know you had a hard week or some other excuse, or it could be easier if I just, put my head down and, he's good to me. This is your life. This is your one time on this world, on this earth that you are given. Are you saying that you are willing to be unhappy or unsatisfied with your experience, the entire experience of your life? Because if you are, that is your choice. And if that is your choice, why complain about your choice? If you can have the opportunity to do something, to create what you want, here is your choice. Will you step to this opportunity, to the unknown, and be supported on the other side of the unknown, outside of your comfort zone? Because everything you want is outside of your comfort zone. And you could be right on the edge, like, I've done everything I can. I don't have anything left. You might have you might have just that whatever you need, that one more step that all of a sudden everything changes. Like, how do you know how far you have to go if you're not willing to go? And if it's important to you, if it's meaningful to you, if you feel inside like, I've been lying to myself all this time, I'm not happy here. One of my last coaching clients, the very last session we had, this comes out, dissatisfaction at home. And we had this conversation about them having a conversation, and they did. And now I'm looking at them expanding, like, holy crap, like, this was like the last thing that we talked about. And this was like the main thing for you. And now you are showing up 100. But if you didn't bring it up, like, she could have been held back by that fear of the what if. Well, it's, in my opinion, life is too short to play small, to live small, to be small. Be who you are. Show up. And know that you don't have to do it alone. false evidence appearing real. That is what fear is. Fear is based in the future, and we are here right now with what is. There's no what if, there's what is right now. Where do you want to go from here?
Love it. I love it. Perhaps you could talk us through dealing with challenging times and the importance of perseverance. Do you have any tips for getting back up more often than you get knocked down?
Your network is your worth, your net worth. People who are speaking possibility, speaking life, breathing it into you. When you are feeling down, when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling like I just don't want to be around people, the best thing for me is to be around people. Like, to be isolated and to shy away from what is going on. It's only adding and compounding on that. Like, for myself, just going through, something similar on my birthday and feeling some kind of way, it's like, oh, I don't have anybody around me. But I was like, wait a second, I have plenty of people I can connect to. And I started reaching out, and all of a sudden, like, I feel more connected than I had a month ago. And it was just by reaching out to my people and sharing what I was dealing with. And one of my friends was like, Jeremy, you serious? You're a grown man. Come on. Like, you do relationships every day, naturally. Like, why do you feel this kind of way about this individual? And I'm like, you got a point. This is what I do naturally. I was just seeing it from this different context in that moment, in that stress and frustration of what is going on that I can't get corrected here, and feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough and all this stuff. And then connecting with people is like, holy shit, I forgot about that. Oh, I don't realize that people see me this way because I'm just looking through my own eyes. And to connect with people to connect with that support, it means a lot to me. I mean, this person even brought that up. I'm like, holy shit, you really do know me well. Wow. But the perseverance part, getting up more than you were knocked down, for me, I remember just my first ice hockey game at 15. I was playing Bantams. It's the age for 15-year-olds. But I was supposed to move up to the next level, but it was my first season playing summer hockey. They're like, this kid he can barely skate, so we'll let him play, whatever. But I kept getting up. I'd get up, I'd haul ass, I'd do what I could, I'd make a hit, and then I'd fall. Whatever. It wasn't good. I didn't have a lot of training to start, but I kept getting up because I loved the game. I just loved it. I didn't care if I fell. Everybody else was judging me about that. And whatever I have cycling through my head, it's all projection of people, oh, you're not good. You keep falling down. It's like, I will get up more times than you, and I will work harder than you. Hard work beats talent when talent won't work hard. That was one of those things that I learned playing competitive hockey. And so to share that energy of just, I don't know where it comes from. It's just been there. But to be with someone who has this foundation of, we get up more times than we get knocked down. And I got you. I'll bring you with me. If you fall, I'm reaching my hand out and I'm bringing you with me. For me, that really helps encapsulate that perseverance. It just means so much to me. Like, I don't care how many times I fall. If it takes 100 times to fall, but 101 I succeed, then let's go.
Makes sense. It sounds like many of the people I speak to who have learnt these types of lessons through sporting activity, would you recommend people to adopt some kind of physical activity in order to practice failing in a safe environment? What are your thoughts about physical exercise supporting your overall mental well-being?
Yeah, I feel exercise absolutely very important for well-being. To support like processing your experience, going for a run. I like going for long runs and just finding a state of flow and being in tune with my body and focusing on, I don't have to try to run faster. I just need to breathe and run with good form consistently and just keep doing that as long as I possibly can. And I mean, I think that's a key because, sometimes I feel like I don't have breath or my posture is whatever. Just focus on that thing and just
Mm.
improve that 1% and just stay there. Exercising, lifting weights, such benefits, adding that resistance, stressing your body in a good way, you know, getting good form of taking your time to get that next rep, just doing slowly. You don't have to crank out a bunch of whatever. But eventually, if you do enough reps, you might get to that point where you can move faster and you can lift heavier. But sometimes just starting small and stressing your body the right way and focusing on your form, it's a great place to begin because you start to see those small results. And eventually, like, holy crap, this thing isn't very heavy. Where did this come from? Like, how am I breathing deeper? Like, holy, what is that? Like, all of a sudden you're able to catch your breath when you're running. You're able to just pick up something without grunting. You're able to stand for longer. You're able to sit with better posture. I can only speak from the situations that I see from, but I feel like the benefits of exercise and moving your body, getting in tune with yourself, feeling what feels off, what might need some support, whether it's medically or finding someone to support good posture and that sort, in the medical field. Yes, I think that it's absolutely important because it's also good for your well-being over the long term, and it's going to improve your well-being, your life. It could add time. You don't want to sit still and that's it. I had this, vision when I was a kid that everyone got fat when they got older, and that was just part of life. And it wasn't until I changed my environment and started meeting other people that I realized that there was a whole other way that you could be. And I've been like the same weight ever since. And it's been this healthy weight that works for me. I feel great. I wake up. I don't feel lethargic. I've got a system that works for me, and I just stick to that system consistently. I run every Sunday. I work out 8 times a month. I play hockey every week. That's what works for me. I'm sticking to that. Maybe I might try something else once in a while, but I found what works for me.
It's a great point that you raise there. Often we just accept that these certain things are going to happen to us as we age, and it's just this downward spiral, gradual decline. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm like you. I met people who, when I was in my 30s, were in their 50s, and I'm going, wow, they're fitter than I am right now, and they're doing great things. And you just have to look at what is it that they do, and it's exactly what you said earlier on. It's consistency. They do similar things every day of the week. They look after their sleep. They exercise regularly. They spend a lot of time working on themselves, learning new skills. They're curious. And these are kind of the ingredients for success. It's kind of consistency combined with curiosity, something like that. So nature obviously plays an important role in your life. There are mountains on the cover of your book for everyone. The book link is in the show notes on your website. I see beautiful pictures. How important is nature to you, spending time in nature?
Oh, it's everything. It's being in awe and wonder. I love mountains, just the majestic peaks, snow-covered. It's like the time it took for this world to create those mountains, for them to get to this point. It's incredible. And yet, mountains can change over time. And what water can do, and carving its course and finding its way. For me, that was part of the beginning of where the change happens, and how I can share that. I mean, that's part of the logo, and you might not think about it, but that's why there's a mountain with a river there, because it's to say, like, you can be inspired by something so grand, something you're like, I have no idea how this is possible, and just appreciate it. The silence of a day, of just listening to birds or watching leaves budding on a tree, as it's turning to spring, or just something, just connecting with nature and just taking a breath as the water's, coming in, at, the Puget Sound, as the waves are rippling, or moving to Florida and being around the ocean, just breathing in the salt air, just things that are bigger than me, beyond me, space, just being, we're all connected still. Everything is still energy. We're all still here as things have happened in the right way for this all to work, for us to be in these moments together. Like, how cool to share the eclipse. Like, how many people in this world we're in the same moment, thinking the same thing collectively. Wow, look at that. For me, being around nature, just walking my dog, walking through the woods, taking some time, I'm able to process my emotions, but I'm also just there to be amazed by just the things that happen naturally.
Mm. Nature really can bring us together. That's such a good point. Everyone in the same situation. It doesn't matter your political views or this or that. Wow, the moon just completely eclipsed the sun, and we're all in this together. Like, we need those reminders.
Yeah.
We come from this planet.
Yes.
I think it was Alan Watts who said, "You don't you're not born into this world, you come from it, just like an apple comes from an apple tree." And when you adopt that mindset, you feel much more connected to others. I
Yeah.
would love to find out
Beautiful.
what you would like people to do, because I'm sure there's many people out there wondering, how do I connect with Jeremy? What would you like them to do?
Yeah. So if you'd like to connect with me, you can email me directly at connect@wherethechangehappens.com, or you can reach out on LinkedIn. My name is Jeremy Stegall, Stegall. I'd love to connect and meet new people and just build community from there. You can also find more about me and Where the Change Happens at wherethechangehappens.com. I'm on Instagram at Where the Change Happens Coaching. I just started a YouTube page as well for Where the Change Happens, which is also where I'm sharing some of the music that I was inspired to write. I want to be vulnerable and put some new energy out there and just meet people where they are. So my first album that I wrote, it's called 20-Year Reflection. It's just what's happened from 20 to 40, and then some songs I wrote from 18 to 20 to 25. But now, working on some more of that stuff. So if you want to hear some music, hear me sing, I can sing. You can find me there. Also, the books are available on Amazon, Where the Change Happens, and After the Divorce, From Looking Back to Leaning In. Where the Change Happens is that nonfiction story of what I did that you can try on your journey to creating purpose and meaning in your life. Whereas After the Divorce is that fiction parable of boots on the ground. What was that experience? What were the emotions? And how do we get to this? See that conversation. It's incredible. And the feedback that I've gotten from that book, it's super relatable, so I'm told. And that's what I was going for. So, yep. You can find me on all those socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I'm here. I'm everywhere.
Perfect. And all of those links will be in the show notes, so please do click on them. Jeremy, any final thoughts for those who've stuck with us the whole way?
I am so grateful that you've made it to this point. Just showing up is of value. Whatever you are at, with whatever you have in your life, you are enough, and you are already where change is possible.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure getting to spend some time with you today, Jeremy. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode. We'll see you next time.